So today we're going to be talking about family trees, but in biology we call them a pedigree. And they're a way that we can track traits over time. And I'm going to be using these symbols in order to make my family tree. And I'm going to use my family as an example so that you can see how I put this together. You are going to make one of your family. So I'm going to set these off to the side so that I can refer to them as needed. And then I also have my page going sideways because there are a lot of kids in my family, and so I know that I'm going to take up a lot of space this way, but each generation is going to build upwards, and so I'm not going to need as much space going vertically. So I'm going to start my family tree with me, and I am a girl, which means that I have a circle, and that circle is going to represent me. Now I am married to my husband, who is a man, and so he gets a square to represent him. We do not have children, and so I'm going to indicate that with this symbol right here. Now I have some siblings, and so those siblings are related to me. So I'm starting to draw this sibling line right here, and I've got me, but I'm a girl, so I have a circle instead of a square. Now, here's where it starts to get pretty complicated. So I have a sister, and my sister has a spouse, but they do not have biological children. They have adopted 2 children. So to show that adoption, I'm using a dashed line, and this means that these offspring are not genetically related to either of these people. And so one of their children is a boy and one of their children is a girl, and they're both adopted, which means that they get dashed lines and brackets. Now I also have a brother. And I'm just making these lines as long as I need them to be. Now my brother, he has a spouse, and they have 2 children. One is a boy, and the other is a pregnancy. And we don't actually know if she's pregnant with a boy or a girl. So when it's an unknown sex, we put a diamond, and the P stands for pregnancy. Okay, we're going to keep going. So I also have another sister. Her and her husband, they have 3 little girls, and because they're all girls, and there's 3 of them, I can actually use the female symbol and put the number 3 in it to show that there's multiple of that. Now she recently had a miscarriage, so to indicate that, we have a pregnancy. We didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, but that pregnancy is deceased. And so we put a line through it to show deceased. All right, the next sibling that we're going to look at for me is one of my other brothers. And this brother is gay. And so what I'm going to draw right now is a hypothetical because he's also pretty young. And so hypothetically, like he has a boyfriend right now, so let's say that they ended up sticking together and they wanted to have a child. Well, we've got a couple options here. Because they're gay, they're not going to have biologically related children to both of them. They could adopt a child, in which case we could have a dashed line with a diamond, because we don't know if that's a boy or a girl, also because I'm making this up, but this dashed line and brackets would indicate that they adopted a child. But maybe they decide that they're going to use a surrogate, and maybe the spouse is going to be the one that is the sperm donor for their surrogate, so the child is going to be biologically related to this person here, in which case I would draw the child line just from the spouse. because that child is biologically related to this spouse. We don't know where it got its other genetic information from. We can assume that there's a mom out there somewhere, because you need an egg and a sperm to make a baby, but we don't know who that mom is in this hypothetical situation. So I could have something like that. Now, my guess is that if they had a surrogate, my brother would probably be adopting this child. But I don't need to draw everything that I know on a family tree. Because we're looking at biological relationships, it doesn't really matter that this child is legally adopted by this person, because that doesn't impact their genetic traits in any way. All right, continuing on, I have a lot of siblings. So far, there are 10 kids in my family. So far, I have 1, 2, 3 girls, and there are 4 girls in my family, which means I'm gonna have a 4th here. And I have 1, 2 brothers. In reality, I have 6. So I'm just going to include the rest of my siblings here. So that means that there are 4 brothers unaccounted for on this family tree. Okay, we're finally ready to move to my parents. So this is a sibling line to show that these are all related. And all of these children came from my parents, and there are a mom and a dad. It doesn't really matter what side I put these on. I happen to know that I'm going to be tracing my mom's sibling, so I've put it off to this side to give me more space over here. But it doesn't really matter. My mom has 1 sister. And they have my grandmother and my grandfather on my mom's side, and my grandfather is deceased. Now, my mom's sister, my aunt, she has a relationship that had a child, but is no longer an active relationship. They're not together anymore, and so there will be no more children from this relationship. However, they had a child. They had a son who is my cousin. Now, they also, my aunt, had more children, so I need an active relationship line, and I can't really put it through this, so we're just going to make this up as we go along, and I'm going to put, she has a relationship with my uncle, and that relationship has some children, and so she has, with my uncle, they have 1 more boy, and they have 3 girls. So I could put more information in here, like he is married and has a child, those 3 girls, 2 of them are married and have multiple children, and the other one is married but doesn't have a child. And I could add all of this to my family tree, but you get to decide how much you're going to put in your family tree, just like I'm deciding how much I'm going to put in mine. My dad, he's got some siblings, so I'm just going to show how we can put that in here. So he has 1 brother, and he has 3 sisters, and they all come from my grandmother and my grandfather. My grandfather's deceased. And that's about all I know about my family tree going vertically. Now, if I knew more, I could continue this. So if I knew who my grandmother's mother and father were, and if she has any siblings, then I could add that. I don't, so I'm going to leave mine right here, and I'm just going to add a couple of notes. So this is me, which means that these are my parents. And then these are my grandparents, is this section here. And these are my aunts and my uncles. All right, so that is how you make a family tree. If there's anything that you're not sure how to put onto your tree, like maybe you are twins or identical twins, you can use these additional symbols, but I think we covered a lot of it right now. Now, the whole point of making this family tree is to be able to go through and map a genetic trait onto it. And so what we could do here is we could look at a trait like Huntington's disease or Duchenne muscular dystrophy or anything like that. And we could shade the people that have the trait, and we could leave those that don't have the trait alone. And that would allow us to see how does that trait move through a family tree. And so that's the purpose, but you got to be able to start by making a family tree. So that's what we did. So go ahead and start there.